Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy. No Way Home paved the way for a perfect new chapter for Spider-Man. The old webhead is back to basics. No Iron Man tech, no high advanced suits. He's in the exact place that Spider-Man needs to be. He's once again just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, swinging around the streets of New York wearing his classic suit.
I'd rather just stay on the ground. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Somebody's gotta look out for the little guy, right?
So Spider-Man 4 has a lot of potential, and we are so excited that we want to share with you some of our ideas, plots, characters, and themes that we hope to see in the next Spider-Man film. First, Spider-Man 4, Homeless, whatever it's called, needs to take the web slinger back to dealing with street-level criminals, as Spidey goes against a crime empire. But things are not so easy for Spidey. No one knows who Peter Parker is. It's like he never existed. Spider-Man 4 needs to address the tragic events of No Way Home and their impact on Peter's psyche, which makes it the perfect time for Peter to bond with a certain symbiote. So here's our ideas for what we hope to see is in Spider-Man 4. Sony, I hope you're watching, because I have come to bargain.
Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
Like I said, Spider-Man 4 needs to go back to basics. No more multiverse threats, no more living in Iron Man's shadow. Spider-Man versus Venom, and maybe even Spider-Verse will probably happen a few years down the line. But for Spider-Man 4, we need a more personal story. Spider-Man 4 needs to deal with the consequences of No Way Home, focusing on Spidey's struggles in a world where no one knows who Peter Parker is. So far, the MCU Spider-Man has always had someone to lean on, from Tony to Ned to May, Happy, and of course, MJ. But now he's all alone, broke and filled with regret, guilt, and anger and uncertainty.
Does it depress you to know just how alone you really are?
This puts Peter in a fascinating state of mind. May is dead because of his mistakes, and just when he finally got the chance to be with MJ, he lost her, possibly forever. He can never have the same relationship with her or Ned. And I hope they wouldn't just undo the memory wipe, at least not in Spider-Man 4. No Way Home was about Peter learning the terrible cost of responsibility, and the consequences of his choices must stay intact for at least a few movies. Now, before we talk about the villains, we want Spider-Man 4 to focus on the criminal element of New York, especially now that the Kingpin is in the MCU.
Don't leave, Eleanor.
Other than Homecoming, we never got a chance to see Spider-Man deal with the criminal underworld. Most of the other heroes are busy with much bigger threats, sort of forgetting about the street-level crime. Tony saw the Vulture as a petty criminal, not a threat that he and the Avengers should waste their time on.
There are people who handle this sort of thing.
The Avengers?
No, just a little below their pay grade.
And this is how the Kingpin was able to build a criminal empire right under the Avengers' noses. And this is why New York needs its friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. While the other heroes deal with the big-scale threats, Spider-Man is the one that can help out the little guy. I can see Peter committing himself to fully being Spider-Man 24/7. When he's Spider-Man, he's at his best. It's where he's most confident.
What do you got for me today, New York?
But after losing May, Peter's going to shut himself out, throw himself into saving as many people as he can, so no one else dies on his watch. Being Peter Parker is more of a mandatory chore for him, just something to do to get paid and pay rent.
Give me rent.
The movie also needs to address Peter's dark side, as he was close to crossing the line and killing Green Goblin. An interesting direction will be if Peter has more rage in his heart now, and that's something that scares him, because he was so close to taking a life. Every criminal he fights, he sees Norman Osborn's face, hears his creepy laugh.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
Threatening to bring out the worst in him as he edges closer to doing something that he's going to regret. Because of this, Spider-Man hesitates in every fight. He's too worried about losing control, so he keeps getting beaten up by the bad guys. And this is where Venom comes in.
Don't lick things that don't want to be licked.
It's only a matter of time till the symbiote will bond with Peter. I mean, we need to get a proper Spider-Man movie with the black suit. This can't be the only black suit Spider-Man in movie history. The black suit will give Peter a whole new edge in his crime fighting, raising his confidence. But the symbiote will feed on Peter's guilt, doubts, and rage, provoking him to be more brutal and careless, bringing him closer to taking the lives of his enemies.
I told you, I give up.
That's funny. I give up too. I give up trying to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
So Peter will have to face his darkness, both internally and physically, as the black suit will represent the manifestation of Peter's dark side.
The world takes everything we love. There's no one you can trust, Peter Parker. No one except us.
So this being said, Spider-Man 4 cannot repeat the same mistakes of Spider-Man 3. So, A, no creepy dancing in the street.
Please don't say that.
B, no emo Parker. C, don't just throw Venom into the final battle of the movie. The actual Spider-Man versus Venom story needs to happen at a later point. Either Spider-Man 5 or a crossover movie.
Oh, Lord Person, do you really think we'll get to see Peter in a black suit for the whole movie?
Well, I sure hope so, Lord Doug. Treat, Lord Doug?
Yes, thank you, Lord Person.
You might be wondering why Doug and I are calling each other Lord. Well, I own 1 square foot of land in Scotland, which, according to Scottish custom, allows me to have the title of Lord or Lady. I acquired this land through Established Titles, the sponsor of this video. My land is on a private nature reserve in Ardeleigh, Aberdeenshire, and it helps to preserve their woodlands. That's the cool thing about this certification. It isn't just a novelty gift, it helps protect the woodlands of Scotland. With every order, they plant trees all over the world. Through their charity partners, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future. You get this certificate with an official crest and a unique plot number so you can see the exact location of your land. Then you will be allowed to officially change your name to Lord or Lady, and you can have this on your credit cards or plane tickets. It also makes for a terrific last-minute gift. I mean, just look at some of these reactions.
Lord Joe Green.
Yes! Lord Kenneth Delane Albert.
All right. Hey, look at that. You will be calling me Lord!
This is absolutely the best gift for Valentine's Day. It's fun and personalized, and it makes your loved ones a Lord or Lady of Scotland with established titles. They're even running a Valentine's Day sale and offering Screen Crush viewers a special offer. Use the code ScreenCrush to get an additional 10% off any purchase. Go to establishedtitles.com/ScreenCrush and get your gifts now. Now back to Spider-Man 4's villains. For the main villain, there are 2 options that I'm hoping for. The fan favorite is Kraven the Hunter, but we'll talk more about him in a moment. As much as I love Kraven, I think the most fitting villain for Spider-Man 4 is the Hobgoblin.
Name's Hobgoblin, and you're right on time for your funeral.
He is the most interesting choice as a follow-up to the Green Goblin. Hobgoblin is one of Spider-Man's most popular villains, mostly thanks to the Great Hobgoblin saga from the comics and the 90s animated show. While he looks like an orange-green goblin, he's not crazy like Osborn. He's far more cunning and devious. He's more like a crime boss, and this ties into the criminal element of Spider-Man 4. If Peter is going to see goblins face everywhere, then it only makes sense to have a villain who looks like him. And I'm sure they could just introduce the MCU's version of Osborn, but it's too soon to have another Green Goblin as the villain after No Way Home. The Hobgoblin that I want to see in the MCU is Roderick Kingsley. And yes, I know that in the comics, Ned Leeds also became Hobgoblin at one point, or maybe that was retconned, I can't remember. And there were a lot of teases in No Way Home that Ned was going to become a villain. But right now, I don't see Ned as a villain.
Oh.
Time will tell, but the Hobgoblin I hope to see is a shrewd businessman who rules a criminal empire.
Me.
Of course, there already is a crime boss in New York, and that's Kingpin. Now that they finally brought him back, it's a no-brainer that we'll see him and Spider-Man clash. And this will also open the door to a team-up with Spider-Man and Daredevil. But, don't get mad, but I'm not so sure it'll happen. Let me explain.
In the spirit of the holidays, I'm going to give you a minute to think about what you're starting right now.
Daredevil is confirmed for the Echo Disney Plus show, where I assume that he will team up with Maya Lopez against the Kingpin, assuming that Fisk is still alive. Please don't kill Kingpin after one episode, Marvel. Please don't you dare. So Fisk is tied to Daredevil and Echo, and I have a feeling that Kate Bishop will be involved somehow as well, since she's also part of the reason for his downfall. This makes Spider-Man kind of the third wheel here, and that's one of the issues with the MCU Spider-Man trilogy. All of the villains had conflicts unrelated to Spider-Man himself. The Vulture and Mysterio were essentially Iron Man villains, and all the baddies in No Way Home were already established as the previous Spider-Man's villains. Peter needs an antagonist that has a personal hatred toward him to be his own arch nemesis. This is why the Hobgoblin fits so well. So here's how I think things will play out. After season 3 of Daredevil, Wilson Fisk's criminal empire falls apart. The show Hawkeye pretty much confirms that, because Fisk has been Fisk downgraded from being the head of a criminal empire to being the boss of the tracksuit mafia.
Kate Bishop is guy, bro.
Kate Bishop is not guy.
Kate Bishop is guy in costume.
Wow.
So Fisk's downfall created a power vacuum, and Roderick Kingsley took over. I want Hobgoblin to be a crafty villain, someone who's capable of creating his own weapons and tech. Kingsley built a criminal empire, ruling the criminal underworld. To cover his tracks publicly, he's playing the role of a wealthy businessman, someone who the public loves, using a bunch of patsies to take the blame for his crimes.
I was acting. Or was I?
But now, Spider-Man is sticking his webs into his criminal empire and Kingsley takes it personally. At first, he'll hire some villains to go after Spider-Man, someone like the Scorpion. Mac Gargan was introduced briefly in Homecoming, and he has his own vendetta against Spider-Man.
You know, take a picture, slice his throat, put his head in a dryer.
Gargan is also one of the main Venom hosts, so maybe he's the one who's going to bond with the symbiote at the end of the movie. So Scorpion will challenge Spider-Man for a bit, but once Peter gets the black suit, he's going to take Gargan down. Kingsley will use his craftiness and he'll piece together Spider-Man's connection to the Green Goblin, finding out about the Green Goblin killing May or Spider-Man almost killing the Goblin. Kingsley will create the Hobgoblin persona to mess with Spider-Man's mind. Peter's rage will distract him, giving Hobgoblin the upper hand against the webhead. Maybe Kingsley will hire Black Cat to get close to Spider-Man and learn about his secrets.
Now can we talk like human beings?
This feels pretty human to me.
Felicia Hardy is an incredible anti-hero, and she fits perfectly into Spider-Man 4. She and Spider-Man have a pretty complicated and spicy romance. Peter needs a new love interest now that he can't be with MJ, at least not for a while. And it shouldn't be Gwen Stacy. I mean, I prefer to see her introduced at a later point as Spider-Gwen. Black Cat is someone who's fresh, both a lover, a friend, but also, at times, Spider-Man's enemy. And this is a fresh take on Spider-Man's usual romances. And unlike Peter's previous love interest, she doesn't need any saving. She can kick ass just as well as him. Peter decided to not reintroduce himself to MJ, probably thinking that she's better off without him because everyone close to him gets hurt. He's completely alone in the world, just like the Black Cat. She also lives a double life, feeling more alive as Black Cat than she does as Felicia. Both of them suffered terrible traumas at a young age and lost loved ones. So she's the perfect match for Peter in his current state. She might be the only one who gets what he's going through. Since Black Cat is far more morally ambiguous than MJ, she will actually like Peter's personality in the black suit. Well, at least at first.
Are we going to be bad guys together, partner? Or just plain bad? Was it something I said?
Hobgoblin would hire her to go after Spider-Man, using her skills to string him along, make him trust her, and reveal his secrets. So this could be a somewhat toxic romance between the two, as both the symbiote and Black Cat will be a negative influence on Peter. But eventually, once Black Cat sees the true darkness of the symbiote, she will try to help Peter, while also facing her own inner darkness. Peter's struggle with his inner darkness in the black suit is likely going to cause him to reunite with MJ and Ned.
Everybody needs help sometimes, Peter. Even Spider-Man.
It's still unclear exactly how the memory spell works, but I assume that MJ and Ned remember that they knew Spider-Man without knowing Peter. Now, we gotta talk about Kraven the Hunter.
I can make you a true hunter, not just a boy pretending to be a man.
He's the fan favorite and one of Spider-Man's best villains. Spider-Man must face Kraven at some point, even if it's not in Spider-Man 4. We need to get an adaptation of Kraven's Last Hunt in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hobgoblin could hire Kraven to go after Spider-Man, though I don't want the movie to be too overcrowded with villains, so it's best to have them in separate movies. There is one caveat with Kraven, and that's that he's getting his own standalone movie. So far, all the Sony villain movies take place in a separate universe from the MCU. Also, it's important to mention that Kraven is one of the villains that was teased in No Way Home, and I think that some of the others could appear in Spider-Man 4. The main thing I want to see with the villains in the new Spider-Man trilogy is characters that have not yet appeared in any previous movies, especially because we just saw most of them in No Way Home. Also, the movie needs to explore how the people of New York react to Spider-Man after the events of No Way Home, because much of Spider-Man's story is about the people of the city he protects.
You want to get to him, you got to go through me.
And me.
Me too.
Remember, everyone still believes that he killed Mysterio. No Way Home explored some of the ramifications of the public's opinion, but it was put aside in favor of the multiversal crisis. Having the black suit will surely complicate things, as the symbiote will cause him to do some bad stuff, and Spider-Man's reputation will only get worse. So I hope Spider-Man 4 will deal with Peter having to regain the public's trust as Spider-Man, as he proves his worth as a hero and New York's protector. That's why I want to see Roderick Kingsley being this beloved public figure. he could use the public's trust to turn them against Spider-Man even more. And in the end, Peter will expose him, show the world just how easy it is to manipulate the public and the truth. This way, people might start doubting Mysterio's lies. This could lead to a fascinating arc for Peter. The movie needs to show us that Peter has a new role model, 2 to be exact. So far, Peter's always looked up to Tony and the other Avengers, using them as an example of the kind of hero that he needs to be.
I just wanted to be like you. And I wanted you to be better.
But after meeting the other 2 Spider-Men, I want Peter to use them as an inspiration because they're just like him, friendly neighborhood Spider-Men. But at the same time, finding new inspiration, not in anyone else, but in himself. That will be the perfect culmination for Spider-Man 4 and the new start for the trilogy, as Peter finally learns to appreciate himself and understand that being Peter Parker and Spider-Man is what makes him who he is, one of the greatest heroes in the MCU. And this is why I hope the 4th Spider-Man movie will be titled The Spectacular Spider-Man. But let me know what you think of all this. What villains do you want to see in Spider-Man 4? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.